even see it land. I didn't even know it hit the cafe there.
Holy smokes, he did it! Off the Hit It Here Cafe!
Welcome back to the Hit It Here podcast. My name is Colton, and I am here with my co-host, Joe. Now, we were recording this episode 3 of the Hit It Here podcast, shortly after the Seattle Seahawks lost to the Chicago Bears 14-9. This was an ugly game for our Seattle Mariners, and overall, this might have been the biggest heartbreaker of the year. Joe, how did you feel about today's game and just the series with Chicago so far?
I was just very confused. About as confused as I was watching Chris Flexen give up 7 runs in one inning. That was not my favorite thing today. You know, we saw the bats come out big, and we were very excited about it. And I even said in our members-only Discord, like, hey, just like a Game 2 against the Angels, the bats are popping off. I probably jinxed it at that point. You know, very superstitious sport baseball is, and after that, it was wraps, but we'll get to more on that later. Overall, Chicago has been about as pesky as the other Midwest team we played previously, Cleveland. So I'm not enjoying our time in the Midwest so far.
Yeah, that final game in Cleveland, obviously the Mariners lost in extra innings, which is the same thing they did in Game 1. Game 1 against the Chicago Cubs. I mean, that home run that Jared Kelenic hit in the 9th inning, goosebumps, man. Like, how did you feel? What happened to you?
I threw my phone. Caitlin was talking to me, and I don't.
Who?
My girlfriend. She was talking to me, and I didn't hear a word that she was saying because I was just like so like entranced with the night sky and seeing the ball fly. I was like, that hit off the score, but like he got every single ounce of that baseball.
Mm-hmm.
One question, really fast. I have one question.
Yeah.
What's up with the knob of Jared's bat?
Is it one? I haven't really looked at it. Is it one of those like thick ones? That's actually a thing that a lot of players are using this year.
Really?
Like if you look at the team, a lot of guys are using it. I believe, and don't quote me on this. Okay. Obviously, when you and I played, we had the axe handle bats, right? Sure. That was kind of popular. These ones allegedly are kind of weighted heavier in the handle, so it more leverage.
Okay.
Or a different weight.
Is that the one where they like half grip their hand, like their bottom hand on it?
Maybe.
I know Arenado does that where he grips like half of his hand like on that knob and then the rest like on like the handle of the bat. I don't know. Yeah. I just noticed every time he's up, I'm like, that thing's thick.
Yeah, I'd have to do more research on it. I think La Stella uses the same kind of bat, and overall I think the team as a whole just like started using it quite a bit like this spring. So I'd have to look a little bit more into it. I remember they talked about it during spring training.
Interesting.
I didn't really pay attention, but overall they did talk about it. But yeah, that home run that JK hit off of the scoreboard, I mean, gave me flashbacks of Kyle Schwarber in the World Series, you know, coming back and landing a ball on top of the scoreboard. But that game, in the end, obviously, the big thing that sticks out for me from this game was similar to what we saw at the end of the Cleveland series in that extra innings game, where Penn Murphy had the pickoff move to second base, and this was Matt Brash picking off to third base and making a bad throw to Gino over at third, which would have gotten Nick Madrigal. So
it was one of those ones where he made the motion to second, and Madrigal had already started going when Brash like picked off, and it just didn't look like Brash adjusted fast enough, I guess, to throw to third. His body like kept kind of carrying him towards second, and I feel like that's probably why his throw wasn't right on the money, which where it needed to be, because you said it would have got him, but Madrigal's fast. He's a speedy boy, so it would have been a tough play all around. But you know, what are you supposed to do with then you got the fastest guy on third? You don't walk the guy that has one of the lowest strikeout percentages on the Cubs with then the next guy up having one of the biggest strikeout percentages in all of baseball last year, Dansby Swanson, who had already struck out twice that night. Walk Nico Horner, try and strike out Swanson, and then try and roll into a double play is what should have been the game plan there, in my opinion. However, they just let Nico Horner somehow hit Matt Brash's, I think it was a slider, out of the zone, poked over second base. Just the end of that game is just another like gut-wrenching loss, because you don't want to lose in extras after you just lost in extras. Your bullpen's taxed even more so. It's another loss that hurts more so because of the circumstances.
Yeah, and I mean, Nico Horner, we'll get to a little bit more on him later for Game 2. Obviously, he had a big hit. Well, not a big hit, but a hit in Game 2 that really threw me off that they were even pitching to him. But in that game, you and I had talked, I think the live stream before that, the one in Cleveland, about walking the guy and just having him steal second.
Yeah.
And that was immediately what I thought about. But it's like, if you walk Nico Horner,
he's going to steal second base.
Right, exactly. And does he just steal second base, and does Cal throw Tom? I don't remember who was catching that game. Do they throw down and try to get the runner. And like you talked about, trying to get the guy like a high school play, trying to get the guy at home.
Have the shortstop
who
come
knows?
across like right behind the diamond and then throw home.
Right. And who knows in that situation what happens? It's a bunch of what ifs, and that's what we've been playing a lot with lately. But Matt Brash has looked bad.
It's just his command. It's not playing in those high leverage situations. Whereas before he was in the 7th, maybe the 8th, where it was high leverage, but not extra innings high leverage, not blown saves high leverage, where it's just getting to a point where we're missing Munoz more than I feel like we would have realized. And yes, the regression to the mean for a bullpen is kind of what we're seeing this year. However, we've had stand-up performances from Spire, Topa, who's been pretty good, and then Gott. So it's just a lot of just playing with fire, kind of like Russian roulette with the bullpen, it seems like right now, and I don't really know what to make out of it. I just hope Munoz, when he comes back, is still firing on all cylinders, because you're right, Brash has looked spotty.
So game one obviously didn't go very well, but one of the bright spots for game one was Jarred Kelenic. Obviously, Joe, you talked a little bit about the home run that he hit off of the scoreboard, which at T-Mobile Park may have been off of the Hit It Here Cafe, which brings us to our cafe question of the day, Joe, which is...
Well, our friend Jared asked us any plans for the pod to be on Spotify, and we have great news. Yes, the podcast is going to be on Spotify from here on out. Same time, same day. You're going to find it on YouTube. You'll find it over there on Spotify if that is your preferred listening place for all your podcast needs. If you have other places where you want us to upload it at, maybe like Apple Podcasts, let us know. But you'll find us on Spotify now. Same thing, Hit It Here podcast. Thank you, Jared, for your question. And remember, comment a question on this video if you want to be featured in next week's episode. And Colton, we're on to game 2 now. You know, I saw the Mario movie during like the second half of this game. It's way better than I think watching the rest of this game. The Mario movie was fantastic. How was the rest of the game, Colton?
You know, what's interesting is I didn't get home from work until after the Mariners had scored about 5 runs to watch this game. So overall, I think the problem was I started watching the game and you stopped watching the game.
False. I watched Chris Flexen give up all 7 runs in that third inning. So maybe I thought me leaving would stop the bleeding.
Right.
It didn't. Because what was the final scoreline? 14-9?
Yeah, it was a nice game between the Bears and the Seahawks at 14-9.
2 field goals, or two touchdowns, 3 field goals. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting game in Chicago. 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals. And overall, this game was garbage. I mean, that's just all you get.
There's no other way to put it. We're not satisfied. I mean, I'm satisfied with certain things like Kelenic, more extra base hits, looking great at the plate. He drew a walk, I think, or was it you?
Yeah,
you weren't
first
walking.
at bat.
Yeah, his first at bat. Okay, but you weren't watching. But yeah, he walked, and it was great. AB kept the line moving, and that's what you want to see out of JK. And I'm just gonna keep playing this little tune here. Jarred Kelenic is looking like one of the better players on our team right now, and I'm very happy to say that.
Yeah, I really wish that Jarred Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez could be, together at the same time.
Yeah, they're being very asynchronous right now.
Yeah.
One cannot exist without the other, kind of a thing. Wait.
Yeah, but
is that how that works? Whatever. Keep going.
Sounds right. Yeah, I mean, JK, like you said, with the walk and then that big home run into left center field that disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you might have been in the movie at this point, but his double that he hit.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Did not.
Okay, so I don't know if you can picture Wrigley Field right now, but are you picturing it?
Yes. My eyes are closed.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So there is a net that extends at a weird angle off of the fence all around the diamond. Mm-hmm. He hit it off the bar of the net. He was maybe 2 inches away from another home run.
Dang it.
To dead center.
Interesting.
So, and then in his last at bat, he hit a hard line drive up the middle, or a hard ground ball. I think it was either the second base or shortstop up the middle, and he was thrown out, but he still hit it well. Mm-hmm. He is expanding the zone a little bit on deep counts. For example, I think it was
in his first at bat today. I saw him swing at a pitch that was 3-2. I think it was either a sinker low and away, or not low and away, but outside. But it was to protect. It was definitely a protective swing. I don't think he was chasing it. I mean, it's a chase because it's out of the zone, but it was more of this is kind of close. Don't know the tail on this pitch specifically. It could have caught the outer edge, so he fouled it off and then drew the walk. Mm-hmm. But I get what you're saying, though. Definitely, a lot of the players on the team, I feel are expanding the zone way more than they should in those 2 strike counts.
Yeah, and I think that's really with Julio. That is the big problem. We talked about it before. His whiff percentage is one of the worst in baseball right now. He is swinging and missing at so many pitches that are not even anywhere near the zone. Don't get me wrong. Julio's been off to a great start, although he's struggling a little bit here in Chicago. He has looked really bad at the plate. And this goes back to game 1 when eventually he walked, but you had the winning run. I think it was on second base at that point. You had the winning run there and he's chasing pitches. Eventually he did walk. But you just can't have bad at-bats, especially in extra innings, from the top of your lineup with, like, for example, Ty France with the bases loaded. We talked about this. And he just looked terrible. Gino then grounded out. And...
Ty France has negative ice with the bases loaded, I feel like, right now. It's bad.
Can I stop you? I'm going to stop you. So, ice. I'm old. Okay.
Do I need to explain what ice means to you?
Is this some new hip thing?
No, dude. Ice in the veins has been a thing since, like, D'Angelo Russell was on the Lakers, and that was early on in his career.
Right, but like, why is it just now ice? It's not ice in the veins. It's just ice. Like,
because he's icy. He's just ice.
When it just like it went from got ice in his veins to ice.
Yeah, it's just shortened. You know, it's just easier. It's still like I don't know. You colloquially, we'll just understand it as it gets smaller. Like you just like compound it more.
At what point can I just call it I?
No.
If I just keep making it smaller.
No.
I don't understand you damn kids and your lingo.
Ice is the smallest it will ever be. Just letting you know. Yeah.
So overall, Chris Flexen was bad. Joe, how do we feel about the Flexen should start over Marco fellas here?
The narrative definitely is looking them directly in the face and saying, you shut your mouth right now. Marco looked really great in Cleveland. I mean, great for Marco is definitely different than what great for a guy like Luis Castillo might say. But at the same time, I mean, Flexen went 2 1/3 and gave up 8 runs. Marco went 5 2/3 and gave up a run, right? So
might have been 2, but yeah.
Sure. Marco he's looked a little bit more consistent. Flexen looked great up until today. And that's the big issue is like, maybe there was just something in the water. I don't expect Flexen to go out there every single time and give up so many runs. However, saying that Flexen is better than Marco at this point, you can't really make that argument anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, overall, we just have to give credit to the Cubs and the Cubs lineup. I mean, they were making hard contact. I talked about it during game 1. Is Nico Hoerner, there was a pitch, I think it was Jose Rodriguez. It was on the mound, the other J-Rod.
Okay.
He threw up above the zone, and somehow, some way, Nico Hoerner, like you said earlier, doesn't strike out. He hit this ball down the right field line and scored 2. And that was like the dagger.
Just like fought it off like at the top of the zone, like punched it the other way.
No idea how he did it. The infield was drawn in close. He hit it down the right field line for, I think it was a double. And overall, I don't know. Nico Hoerner is a freak of nature. Also, off topic here, but Dansby Swanson got pulled out of the game early, which I'm not sure why.
Oh,
yeah, you were probably seeing the Mario movie.
I was in fact seeing the Mario movie, believe it or not. I would assume, if the game's away from them, maybe just giving him some, a little time off the field for a bit, but...
Well, that's the thing. I think it was only a 3-run game in, like, the 6th at that point, so...
Maybe like a precautionary thing. Yeah, for sure. I know there's a play up the middle where he fielded it. We had runners on first and second, and this is how the bases got loaded because I think Julio hit this ball. And he flipped it to Hoerner at second and, like, got over him. Maybe, like, something happened on that play. It was very early in the game, so I highly doubt it because they would have taken him out way earlier if it's, like, a precautionary thing. So I don't really know. But if Dansby Swanson's on the IL... This is you heard it here. All right. At the Hit It Here podcast. Source.
Okay. So we're moving on. So the bullpen usage has obviously been a big talk of the Seattle Mariners thus far. We've seen a lot of guys like Gabe Spire, and we've seen Justin Topa. We saw him in back-to-back games up until the game that was today, or I guess yesterday for you guys that are watching this.
Yeah.
And the bullpen usage as a whole has been, like I said, a big problem for the Mariners, especially after Chris Flexen wasn't able to get deep in yesterday's game.
He doesn't even need to go like that deep. Like he needed to go 5.
Right, especially with a 7-run lead.
Yeah.
Go 5, give up 2 or 3, and then turn the ball over to Jose Rodriguez and have him pitch 3.
Yeah.
And maybe give up a few more runs. And
sure, try and keep it like within striking distance for the game to finish out. but giving up 8 is it's the opposite of what you needed out of a starter today after your bullpen has had to work way more than normal.
Yeah, obviously we saw the usage of Penn Murphy. We saw Paul Sewald now get 2 days off in a row, which is good. Hopefully that will kind of bring him back to the norm for Paul Sewald. Diego pitched in the game, the second game of the series. He looked decent.
I saw a lot of people saying that they don't want to trust him anymore. That was some of the things I saw on Twitter post-game, is not really feeling confident in Diego Castillo. I thought he looked great in Cleveland, but that's a different outing than what people are talking about today.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, our bullpen, due to injury and just overuse right now, has not looked good.
Yeah.
Oh, like the Mariners bullpen has been downright bad so far this season in 2023. And whether that be, new guys coming in like your Trevor Gott. I mean, Trevor Gott was good.
Gott's been great. I mean, he gave up a run today. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the bullpen itself, I don't know if it's just, again, overuse, or obviously Andres Munoz being hurt does not help.
Yeah.
But Matt Brash has looked pretty bad. Diego's been kind of hit or miss. Penn Murphy's been decent, but he's been way overused. He's pitched in 7 of the 11 games played so far.
I think he's leading the team in pitching appearances for sure.
Right. So I'm not sure what the right answer is. Obviously, we cannot keep bringing up the JB Bukowskises and the Jose Rodriguez's of the world.
Yeah.
The bullpen needs to get back into better shape. And with the off day coming up on Thursday, maybe they can do that. But so game 3 against the Cubs, like I said, you guys are probably watching this game right now or watching this after the game, is going to be Logan Gilbert versus Marcus Stroman. And so far, Marcus Stroman has looked pretty good, and Logan Gilbert has been a little bit hit and miss, but he still has been pretty decent. Joe, what do the Mariners need to see out of game 3 against the Cubs?
I mean, Gilbert just needs to go more than 4 innings. I know last time his velo dropped. He was at 81 pitches or something like that. So they got him out of there a little bit earlier. Bullpen did come in and save the day. I don't know if the bullpen's going to be able to do that tomorrow with all the high level, amount of usage in the last couple of games. So Gilbert's going to have to go out there and shove at least 6. I think that is what you need out of him. Sewald's going to be available to pitch. Spire will likely be able to pitch. I don't think Topa saw any action today, so Topa could maybe come in. We talked about Jose Rodriguez. If he gets sent down and someone comes up, because that's what happened with Bukowskis, just another guy to eat garbage innings, don't be surprised if that's going on there. Stroman, he's a guy that you said he's pitching well. He hasn't given up an earned run this year. He's pitching really, really great as the front end of that staff for the Cubs, leading their way on the mound. We tagged Wisniewski really early on in the game, yesterday. If we can get Stroman there again and just let Gilbert kind of ride it out, I think that's the biggest key, is to chase Stroman early, get to the Cubs bullpen, and just hope Gilbert is cruising.
Yeah, and we saw the Mariners do that with Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, Ohtani went out there and randomly threw 110 pitches. But that's because the Angels are garbage at managing their pitchers. And like you said, there's probably going to be someone coming up for AAA, whether that be a Tommy Malone or a Darren McCacken. Yo, what's up, Daydara? One of those guys is probably going to come up just in case the Mariners do need to cover some innings. Obviously, the idea is Andres Munoz will come back sooner rather than later, and the Mariners are going to be fine. But moving forward, they have the off day on Thursday. So if they need to throw a few guys in the Wednesday game at 11:20 Pacific, it's not the end of the world, because everyone's going to get a day off after that. And then they're going to return home versus the Colorado Rockies. In that series, we should theoretically have Marco Gonzalez and then George Kirby and then Luis Castillo in that weekend series with the Rockies. If Marco doesn't go on paternity leave, of course. I don't hate that for the Mariners. I think that is a good matchup for the weekend. I
will say I am a bit nervous to see Marco Gonzalez pitch to CJ Cron. Specifically, CJ. I feel like he's gonna hit 4 home runs, which is scary to say, and I don't want. That's not a reality that I want. It's just what I'm imagining, if you will. It's my biggest fear. But you're not wrong. The day off on Thursday is going to be huge. Returning home should theoretically also pay dividends to them. There's a travel day in there, but getting out of the Midwest, which seemingly feels like it's been cursed in Chicago specifically, just get out of there. Just, shake off the juju, get out of there, get back into the mojo of T-Mobile Park and take home some dubs against the bottom of the barrel of the National League West, in my opinion. Rockies are by and large the worst team in that division. You should trounce them in your home ballpark. And with the homestand coming up, make sure to gear up at simplyseattle.com. We got code Mojo10 for 10% off your order at checkout. One of our greatest partners and sponsors of the channel and the podcast here. We love their stuff, and we hope you love it too. Make sure you use code Mojo10 at checkout at simplyseattle.com.
With the Mariners playing against the Rockies and then playing against Milwaukee, you should be doing all right. Like you said, get out of the Midwest. Hopefully, if the Mariners take the game on Wednesday, they'll finish with a 500 road trip. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, we would have liked to have it go a little bit better, especially winning the first 2 games on this road trip. But once you get home, face Colorado, face Milwaukee, these are not teams that are going to blow you away. They're not nearly as good as the Cleveland Guardians. And honestly, I don't think they're nearly as good as the Chicago Cubs for that matter. So this might be a series where the Mariners have a chance, or a couple series where the Mariners have a chance to kind of make up some ground before facing St. Louis, Philadelphia, and Toronto.
I will say, I mean, the Brewers, if you're calling the Brewers pretenders, they're ahead of both the Cubs and the Cardinals, and the Brewers been beaten up on the Cardinals. So careful with your words there. You might have some Brewers fans come out of the woodwork here.
Hey, Brewers fans, listen. All right.
We know you don't exist. You don't have to say anything. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, though. Getting back on the right foot against a team like the Rockies, it's one of those ones where it's like, this series should be like a reset for the team itself. You just kind of want to get back on the right track. Maybe get some fundamentals down. Tom Murphy, if a guy's stealing second, don't throw it into the outfield. Pitchers, if a gonna pick off, maybe make sure a guy's there. Maybe make sure you're hitting the guy in the chest. Like, focus on the fundamentals. You're at home. The crowd's going to be with you instead of against you. I know in the game yesterday, they were dead silent when the Mariners dropped 5 in that inning. And then the very next inning, when the Cubs decided to wake up, the crowd was just going bananas, which makes sense. You know, you're in enemy territory. So having, you know, the Mariners faithful back behind you, win some games for them. Because we really need it. Right now we're 4-8. If you take 2 out of 3, maybe sweep the Rockies, you're 1 game away from being at 500 at that point. Unless, of course, you lose to, you know, numbers are weird. But you'll be closer to 500 than you were before if you win some games against the Rockies.
And I'll be at the game on Friday. If you guys do see me, make sure you guys say hello. And we have a video on the screen right now talking about Julio Rodriguez and why he is so much better than some of the players on other teams that maybe have bright futures, but just haven't reached their potential. We want you to check that one out. We appreciate you guys watching this episode of the Hit It Here podcast.
And if you're listening on Spotify, congratulations. You're one of the first people to listen on Spotify. Remember, every single Wednesday at noon, same time, same place, Spotify or YouTube. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and go Mariners.